And then obviously as people join, that's great too. I will definitely not be able to monitor chat as I'm speaking and looking at the slides. So this is going to be relatively informal. Do have a set of slides that I'll run through that's in some ways very similar to what we already reviewed at UPAC. So kind of a review of those slides and then some additional slides with some examples and FAQs that have come up since the fall term has started. So I'll walk through all of that, and then there should be plenty of time for questions and discussion and feedback. I know that this is called a masterclass, but full disclosure, contrary to popular belief, I am not a wizard and I do not know everything about everything. So I am quite certain there are questions and feedback and information that you might want to share about how this is going and questions students have and maybe technical aspects of this that I won't immediately have the answer to. But this will give you the opportunity to share that information with me. I can jot those things down and follow up, of course, with those questions after speaking with some colleagues and or UITS or whoever needs to be involved. All right, so I'll get started. Can everyone see the slides? Can I get a thumbs up?
Yes.
I'm not seeing the green circle anymore, but yay. Okay. So I'm Maggie Ramirez. If we haven't met, I am the associate registrar, one of the associate registrars in the Office of the Registrar. My portfolio of work and my team covers pretty much all of the Reg Help student services, all the cases that come to Reg Help, all the phone calls, all of the chat cases. So we do a lot of assistance in that regard. We also work with change of schedule, residency classification, incoming and outgoing college level transcripts for undergraduate students. My team also consists of the team that processes petitions and appeals, specifically general petitions and tuition appeals. And I think that mostly covers it. So it's a big team. And so we get a lot of the incoming questions, of course, about the repeat policy. My team doesn't set the policy, but we are extremely involved in helping campus partners and students understand when policy changes or understanding what's going on their academic record. So that's why I'm here with you today doing this presentation. Michael Davenport was going to be here with me today, but he had to be out of town today. But he did help put these slides together for me. So I'll just do a few slides to reiterate what's changed with the policy for anyone who maybe wasn't at the UPAC presentation or hasn't seen this information go out. So hopefully you do know this, but what used to be called the grade replacement opportunity policy is now called the repeating a course and grading for repeated courses policy. This is live now for courses taken in fall 2025 or later. And it had a lot of support. And actually this idea, I think, originally stemmed from some work that the advising community did and the advising directors did and kind of benchmarking and pushing for a change to how the GRO process worked for undergrad students, especially. And so this is the fruit of all of that labor. And so just in case you're ever wondering if you should or shouldn't bring up an idea you have about a change to policy or something that you know is not working great for students, this is a direct result of that being brought up by the advising community and then it going through the appropriate channels and making a really positive change, I think. So we believe that this change, and so did the faculty committees who approved it, will remove barriers for graduation. It really prevents penalties for missing kind of procedural steps that we all made up one day and decided were the barriers that students had to get through to get the benefit of these policies. So those have been largely removed. We believe it better reflects the true academic progress of students when they do choose to repeat a course. And it protects student GPA from, stuff happens when you repeat a course and you get a lower grade. This removes that penalty that they would have received in the past where the second grade was always the one that was going to count typically unless they filed a petition to get a different result. So there are university-wide impacts as a result of this policy change. So the main ones are that the course repeat limit changed from 2 to 3 officially in policy. So you probably are familiar with that the system, PeopleSoft was not stopping students from enrolling in more than 2 attempts, even though the policy said that they could only do 2. So now the system limitations and the policy are aligned. And so a student without a petition should not be able to re-enroll in a non-repeatable course more than 3 times. So that is, hopefully more clear for everyone involved when the policy and what's actually happening in the student information system are matching. Complete withdrawal grades, the WC grade that is earned by a student who does a complete withdrawal either during the term or retroactively, now counts as a course attempt. Previously, it did not. W grades did, but WCs did not. And now WC grades do count as an attempt. We did add language about that on the complete withdrawal form that exists in Student Center. So when a student now does a complete withdrawal during the term, they do acknowledge the fact that once it's complete, they'll earn WC grades and those will count as a course attempt. And hopefully you've seen this already, but we did a pretty big overhaul of the repeating a course and grading for repeated courses website on the Office of the Registrar website, and included a lot of new, hopefully useful information for you all. And it's also public to students. So it's ideally helpful if you are talking with a student about what options they have in repeating a course, how it's going to impact their record. This will be a useful resource for you all to be able to share and link to as well. So not a lot changed as far as what type of course a student can repeat and what type of grade would have to be present on a prior attempt for a student to repeat a course, but I will just go over some of what's shared on this slide. So similar to how it always has been, courses completed with a passing or failing grade that is a C or lower or is not factored into the GPA. So we did can be repeated. So we did add information here that includes incomplete and MG grades, which I'll touch on a little bit more later because those are a little bit tricky. Technically, the system's not going to stop a student from re-enrolling, even though we do participate in some proactive outreach to students who fall in that category. Courses that were audited can be repeated. So those would be courses that earned the audit grades you see there. And then, of course, repeatable for credit courses can be repeated as many times as the catalog setup allows. So when you set up a repeatable for credit course, you designate the number of units that are available to a student to repeat that course. And so once they've hit that limit, that's when the system would stop a repeat enrollment. Certain courses should not be repeated. Those are courses where the original grade earned for a non-repeatable course was an A or a B. Success courses and courses that are designated, like I just mentioned, they are repeatable, but the student has already met the limit that was set by the department for how many units can be earned in repeating that course. And then again, just a refresher on what counts as an attempt. So obviously all of the passing grades count as an attempt, as do incomplete and MG grades. So when we're looking at whether the student is enrolling in a repeat attempt, all of those grades on the record in the past would mean that this new attempt that they're enrolling in would count as a repeat. Audit courses with a grade that you see there, that is a so pretty much if you sign up to audit a course and you drop it anytime, it's going to count as an attempt. And then courses canceled, no fault of the students, those are not going to count as an attempt. So if a student had been enrolled and it's canceled, we make sure the record is such that enrollment's not going to count as an attempt for a student. So the asterisk at the bottom, I just wanted to bring up that what we're currently doing for, because this system, again, is not going to proactively stop a student from re-enrolling in an attempt, a repeat attempt where the prior grade is an incomplete, an MG, which hopefully you've heard this swirling. MG stands for missing grade. And I can talk more about when those are used in later if you have questions. But an incomplete grade, a missing grade, an A or a B, as this slide talked about, should not be repeated. However, the system is not currently set up to stop a student from enrolling when that is true. So we already had been doing in the past outreach proactively when we saw this happening where a student would re-enroll in a course where they had an incomplete grade currently still on file. And we would try to counsel the student and give them some options that this was out of compliance with the repeat policy. And, because the I is an unknown grade, we don't know if it's going to fall into the A or B category or the C or below. It puts them in a difficult spot because they really need to resolve that grade or drop the current attempt to be in compliance. And the same pretty much is true for the MG grade. So there's two ways that an MG grade is assigned. One would be a student at the time of grading, the roster, a student has an active academic integrity violation being reviewed. The instructor wants to submit their other course grades. So the instructor reaches out to us, asks us to assign an MG grade so that they can post the rest of the roster. And that way the student has a grade on file that everybody knows that that's what's going on. And it's not something where they're going to post the wrong grade and then have to lower it or change it. The MG grade has no impact on GPA. So it's just kind of a better way while we're waiting for that final decision to be made. The other way an MG grade is assigned is if the grade roster is not graded at the 90-day mark after the course session or term ended. So we do a lot of proactive outreach to instructors to get grades posted if they're not being posted within an appropriate amount of time. So we do all of that within those 90 days. When it hits 90 days, the system runs a process that posts the roster with all MG grades, and then the instructor has to go through a process to change those grades to the final grades when they have them. And we continue to do outreach to get them to post the final grade. So anyway, we are doing proactive outreach to students when we see enrollment pop up for anyone who is enrolled in a repeat attempt for any of those types of grades, to just mainly give them information about how that's going to impact their record if the original grade ends up being a passing grade and they're out of compliance with the repeat policy. Both of these are not going to count towards your earned credit, things like that. We do ask them to try to resolve it before the drop deadline for the new repeat attempt. And so there's varying degrees of compliance with that. We're trying to get away from the process of forcing the drop and doing more education and outreach ahead of time to get them to proactively connect with you all and make that decision. But we are also working on a project with UITS to see how we can, at the very least, start with blocking a re-enrollment attempt for an A or B grade. So that work is underway, and we are trying to figure out how to get that in place so the system will block that type of enrollment. So key aspects for undergraduate students of the new policy, the highest grade earned, if it's repeated in fall 25 or later, is going to be the one that counts for GPA. There's no more GRO, as you know, so they don't have to file for that or designate it as such. It will happen automatically. For non-repeatable for credit classes with a C, D, or E grade. There's no limit on how many times they can do this. The only limit is how many times they can repeat a specific course, but over the course of their academic career, they could utilize the benefit of this as far as the highest grade being counted as many times as they need to. And then for repeatable courses, so like an internship course, if a student took it and it's a repeatable for credit course and they received a failing grade, when they repeat, if they enroll in that again, the system will recognize that obviously the first one did not earn credit, so the next one will be the grade that counts. If they did pass that class, I'll talk about that in a couple slides, but they would have to petition if they really are not repeating the repeatable for credit course for additional credit. They're really trying to replace the grade. We have a process now where they can request that exception. And that's what this slide is about. So this is probably one of the things we've had the most student questions and confusion about is this new form that was created on the left box on this slide. So it's the repeatable for credit petition. We had a lot of students trying to submit this, thinking that it was like the new GRO form, basically. So they were submitting it for non-repeatable courses. So we had to do a lot of response to this form over the last month, just with erroneous submissions of it and trying to help people understand how to use it. But the repeatable for credit petition is specifically, again, for a student who is enrolling in a repeat attempt of a repeatable course, but where they're doing that repeat enrollment for the purpose of replacing a grade, not because they need to earn additional credit for it or they want to. Something happened in the first attempt and they didn't pass it, and or they got a low grade and they really would like to replace that grade. We are giving them the opportunity to request that and tell us that that is their intention through this repeatable for credit petition. And it's just a simple Microsoft form that creates a Trellis case for the grad services team to review and make sure that the repeat codes are adjusted to have the outcome that they were expecting with that repeat enrollment. The other one on this slide is the one that has existed for a long time that you're probably familiar with, where if a student does need to enroll beyond what's allowed by policy, so beyond the 3 attempts, this petition is the same petition that you would be familiar with, where the department should be submitting this saying that, yes, they approve, they have room in their course for the student to repeat it, beyond the policy limit. And then again, grad services adjusts repeat codes in a way that enables the enrollment. We're not enrolling the student. It's not like a change of schedule. They make it so that the system will allow the additional enrollment by manipulating the repeat codes on past attempts. Oh, I'm out of breath. Okay, so part of the new website that we built for the Repeating a Course on the Office of the Registrar website, there's a sub-page on that you can get to from the main page that goes to this table that explains all of the repeat codes that you would see, the common repeat codes on the student record. It tells you what you would expect to see on the advisement report and the course history, and then also what a student would expect to see related to that repeat attempt or that course actually on their transcript, on the transcript text. It also tells you about the impact of that, like what is that repeat code doing to the student record? Is it excluding the course from GPA? Is it excluding it from earned credit? That's all explained in the table. One of the common questions that we've received from the advising community, some confusion, and from students is there was a slight change in when these codes show up and where when this policy changed. And so I'm going to talk through some examples that hopefully will clear some of that up on the next few slides. So when and where do course repeat codes appear? So on the advisement report is actually the first place that you would see the new repeat codes. So the new repeat codes, so the RINC and REXC codes are the 2 brand new codes that were built because of this policy. Those will appear on an advisement report as soon as the repeat enrollment in fall 25 or later is on the record. So while it's in progress, when you pull the advisement report, you would expect to see on the fall 25 attempt, for example, the RINC code. I have a slide that kind of displays this visually next, but so that's when you would expect to see that code on the advisement report. You would also see the historical code change for the most recent attempt prior to fall 25. And then at the end of the term, when courses are graded and this course gets picked up in repeat processing, that's when the repeat codes would then also appear on the transcripts and course history. So repeat processing happens every day. So it kind of just like watching for classes to get graded and to be picked up in the process. And so as soon as a course is graded for a student at the end of the term, they'll get picked up pretty quickly in that. And then the repeat codes, you would expect them to be visible on all 3 places. So the advisement report, the transcript, text, and codes, and the course history. So this is a little bit different because previously when someone applied for a GRO, proactively on the course history page, you would have expected to see on that attempt the PGRO code because it did show up on the in progress course. And the RINC does not on the course history. So that is a little bit different. If you ever are questioning whether something is appropriately being coded, I would just default, if it's an in progress in fall 25, to look at the advisement report first. If it's there, you're good to go. Like everything should be working as it should. So this is just a couple example scenarios of like what you'd expect to see and where. So this student scenario is a student who is repeating a course. They had taken it at least one time, the first attempt before fall 25, and now they're enrolled in a repeat attempt in fall 25. So on the advisement report, while the course is in progress, on the first attempt prior to fall 25, you would see the REXC code, and that code is excluding that course from GPA and earned credit. The second attempt in fall 25, you would expect on the advisement report while it was in progress to see RINC, and so that code should be prompting that course to be included. The course history, while the course is in progress, for the current attempt is not going to change, so there's not going to be a code visible in the course history. The historical codes, if they had repeated it more than once in the past, those codes also will not change until repeat processing happens. So if there was a past GRO code, um, that wouldn't change while it was in progress. It would change when the repeat processing ran. So on the advisement report and course history and transcript after repeat checking ran, again, everything would update to match where the first attempt would be REXC and the second attempt would be RINC. If that second attempt is the higher grade. If it wasn't, then those would just be like flip-flopped. If they ended up earning a lower grade in fall 25, you would see the REXC on the fall 25 course and the RINC on the higher grade. Oh, this is an example of kind of what I was starting to explain. Clearly, I forgot what I had on my slides. So this is an example of a student who has a third attempt in fall and the past attempts had GRO codes. So while the fall 25 attempt is in progress on the advisement report, the first historical attempt of the three would stay with the GRO 1 code. The interim attempt would get updated to the REXC, and then the fall 25 would be RINC. The course history during that same time period would remain with GRO 1, GRO 2, and then no repeat code on the current attempt. Once repeat checking ran, everything would get updated and it would assign the new repeat codes across the three attempts based on which was the highest graded attempt. So again, the RINC would get assigned to the highest, and then the REXC would be used for any of the lower graded attempts of that same course. Okay, some common FAQs. I'm almost done, and then we can have time for questions. So past GRO exceptions, as many of you know, and your advising directors also should know, we do accept emails from advisors and students and advising directors who believe, they have a past GRO attempt that was missed. The deadline to file was missed. And they want the student to get the benefit of that retroactive GRO. So this would be, I'm talking about a situation where both attempts were prior to fall 25. We still are open to receiving those requests from all of you if you believe that's in the best interest of the student and that they truly missed the deadline. Typically, people are sending those just directly to Reg Help and we can review. And then if it's a complex question, they get escalated to me and I can review and reach out to the advising director and make sure we still accept those. We do try to stick with the 2 semesters back to just a simple request for those because that's in line with other petitions and appeals expectations. So general petitions can't be filed more than a year out. Tuition appeals can't be filed more than a year out. So we believe that requesting an exception like this, we should follow that similar guideline. Obviously, if there's an extenuating circumstance or something that wants to, an advising director or the college representative who reviews general petitions, for example, wants to bring something forward to us, they can send that to Reg Help. It will get escalated to me and I'm happy, obviously, to review. The second thing that's come up is, I already mentioned the high volume of the incorrect use of that repeatable for credit petition. So anything you can do to help students understand when that would be needed and why, that would be great. We do have a good system in place to make sure that we're responding and trying to educate and make sure students understand the new policy. We do not have the authority to apply the new repeat policy to any retroactive series of courses. So the only way that somebody can get the benefit of this new setup, the new repeat codes, the new policy where only the highest grade of any number of attempts counts, is by enrolling in a course in fall 25 or later. Then they get the benefit retroactively to the prior attempts, but we cannot, even through petition, accept a request to apply this current policy to past course attempts. I have had people reach out. Again, we're always super open to kind of collaborating with you all. If you have a very specific and unique student situation that they're trying to get across the finish line for graduation and, you were hoping to apply this retroactively, I can't say yes to that, but I'm obviously always welcome to, a conversation about what is possible within the boundaries of the petitions we have available and what we might be able to do. I helped someone recently kind of see if we could make a change to what courses GRO was used on in the past as opposed to applying retroactively. and that was able to get the student where they needed to be for their GR or their GPA for graduation, for example. So just want to make that clear. I would not, I just don't want anyone to spend a lot of time trying to campaign for this to be applied retroactively, even if we all know it could be a great opportunity for the student. We are not allowed to say yes to any of those exception requests. Repeat processing, like I mentioned, runs every day. So when you're looking at a student who's finished a term and all their grades are posted, but you're not seeing these codes yet, it runs at the end of the day, like Monday through Friday. So if it's, you think maybe it just hasn't run yet, give it a day and then check the advisement report and the course history. And if you're still thinking that the codes are not there, that they should be, then just reach out to Reg Help and we can take a look. I kind of alluded to this on the visual example slide, but just a little quirk of how this all works. The repeat processing that happens automatically every day can only adjust automatically the current attempt and one attempt prior. The adjustment to all of the prior attempts, if there was 4 attempts on the record, for example, repeat processing would apply the right repeat code to the current attempt, 1 attempt back. So that would get done automatically. And then we have to manage cleanup reports to fix the other historical codes because PeopleSoft can't look back that far. So just another kind of like inside baseball thing that we want you all to know, because again, sometimes there might be like a slight delay after grading happens and repeat processing runs before the whole entire historical record is 100% accurate. So I would just, offer that, when you're seeing something that you're thinking is not showing up exactly how you expected when it comes to historical repeat codes, give it a day or two, reach out to us if you still have questions, and we're always happy to take a look at records. But just know that we do have daily reports where we are doing our best to catch those situations proactively and just get those updated, but it does not happen automatically. Okay, I already mentioned the new acknowledgement statement on the complete withdrawal. I just want you to be aware that students are acknowledging that statement and should be aware that WCs count when they're doing a withdrawal from the current term. So what's next? The biggest push for grading for new fall repeats will happen in October when the 7-week session ends. So that will be our biggest kind of first test case for the mass application of the repeat checking process, applying these new repeat codes when those grades are assigned in October. So we will be closely monitoring that and looking for questions or issues from you all if you encounter anything that you're concerned about. In November, obviously priority registration begins. So I do know in October and November, we'll probably again get another wave of questions from students about how this is all going to work and what they need to do when they enroll in a repeated attempt. So we, of course, will partner with you all in helping answer those questions and make sure everybody's prepared for enrolling how they want to in the next term. And then again, we'll have another round of grading at the end of the term in December, and repeat checking will run on all of those grades every day, and we'll do manual cleanup for the past repeat codes as well daily at that point in time. Whew. Okay, so those are all the slides I had prepared. I definitely wanted to leave a lot of time for questions or feedback or just anything you all are experiencing that you want me to follow up on with my team, with UITS, with how this has all been set up. I'm happy to address those. And then I'll try to look at the chat. Let's see. Marissa, you want to revisit the WC change? You're always welcome to suggest the direction that you want to see policy go in. You should always bring that up. I think you should bring that up in when Alex visits, and then see where that goes. But we're always open to feedback. Will the system catch that they should not repeat it, or would we drop them? I don't know, Marco, what situation you're specifically referencing there, but if you want.
It was when you were talking about the courses that they should not repeat, but then you explained that it was they weren't stopped from enrolling in a course they shouldn't, but that they are being flagged so we can reach out to them.
Yeah. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm relatively certain that my team, when they do the outreach for like a repeat and an incomplete, I thought it was our business practice to be trying to copy advisors on that. So hopefully some of you are getting those notifications when we are trying to reach out to a student, because we're really trying to push them to you all to say, like, why are you doing this? And, to help them kind of work through what they need to do to either get the prior grade resolved or make a different choice with their current enrollment. Marissa, the offering department allows the exception. Can the student's department be notified? Theoretically, I mean, I don't know. I mean, right now that's not the business practice. The decision was made that for the repeat exception beyond the 3 attempts, that the department who should make that decision is the department who is offering the course and has to have a seat available for someone who has repeated this course multiple times in the term that they're requesting, for example. And so Alex wanted to make sure that that department who's offering the course was the one saying that, yes, we would agree to this, similar to department consent, So that's how the instructions on the form are currently set up. It's not currently set up, as far as I know, to have any sort of notification to like the advising community or the students' college. But I will make a note of that suggestion. Is there a way for students to know that is... Okay. Thank you for those of you answering some chat questions as we were going. That's super helpful. There's a report that is pulling the non-repeatable courses situations. I don't know if I understand your question, Sean.
It was answered with Marco's.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going down in order. Oh gosh. Are you planning for additional repeat cleanup? Our process for cleaning up these historical codes, Stephanie, we don't anticipate that it should provide like a huge delay, because we'll be getting them delivered every day. So like repeat processing runs every day, and then we'll get also the like error reports every day. And so, it's usually our business process for something like this to get those handled on the same day we receive the error or like the cleanup report. So I don't anticipate it slowing things down. I just foresee a lot of exceptions being made for the WC cases. Yeah. Confused about MG grades. Yeah, I know it. The MG grades are MG and I, and how they impact. Yes, they are repeatable, because it's very possible that the final grade that's posted will be in compliance with the repeat policy, because they're just not final grades. And so they're kind of in this gray area where it's very possible the student can plan ahead and enroll in the next term, and that grade is going to be resolved in plenty of time, and it's going to be a grade that is within the policy to repeat a course. And so we don't necessarily want to be removing that future enrollment way ahead of time when they have 6 months, 5 months to potentially resolve that. So we can't, it's kind of like it's definitely a gray area. It's not you can't, it's just that we need them to know that really that original grade needs to be resolved in order for the repeat enrollment to be valid, and also so that they really understand the impact to their academic record based on the grade from the first attempt. Jocelyn, are you referencing the language that's used in like when a student gets an error message, like for enrollment in a course that requires department consent?
That's correct.
Okay, yes. I really want that too. We are doing some other updates to messages students receive, and we just recently found out because we were requesting updates because of this policy to include hyperlinks and other helpful things in those messages. So we now know a little bit more about which messages are a lower lift to update, and I think that might be one of them that we could probably work on. So there is hope, and I have wanted that for a long time as well. So can a student opt to take an failing grade if on an incomplete if they want to repeat it? Um, I would hope that they would not be in a failing grade situation because really if a student, I mean, let me start. Yes. If that's what the decision that they make with the instructor and they say, I'm not going to do any more work, the expectation would be, I don't want to finish this incomplete. They have that discussion with the instructor. The instructor assigns whatever grade the student earned um, based on the work that they did do and the attendance they had in that course. So no, I don't want someone just assigning a failing grade to get the ability to repeat it. They should be assigning whatever grade the student earned. So I think most instructors would do that. Um, this is really across the board, and this comes up a lot, Jocelyn, for anything that we deal with when a student is having issues with grading or a instructor. I always tell them to go to the department head next. Or, you know, a lot of your areas have amazing department coordinators or other people who really help with kind of corralling everyone. And so sometimes if I know that person, I'll say, try that person. They might know who you should contact. But typically, if it's related to the instructor, they should go to their supervisor, and that's typically the department head. Jasmine, did you have a question? I think you have your hand up.
Right. Yes. How are you doing, Maggie? So I
Good.
have a quick question about how this will affect financial aid. I'm in a situation right now where I have multiple students who, and it's specifically when it comes to transferring in credits, where they'll complete a class. Like I had a student who got a D in their Chem 151, which is passing, and then they went ahead and retook it at a community college during the summer, transferred that in, and it completely removed the 4 units that they completed. So it looks like they did 26 out of the 30, when in reality they did pass 30 of the 30. So my question is like, is this something that's like financial aid is keeping in mind and kind of like manually counting units as they're appearing, or are they still going to be using those total unit counts since it might be like less than what they're actually having completed, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. That would definitely be a question for financial aid. I mean, they've been kept in the loop on this policy change, and they're aware of the new repeat codes, as is transfer to credit and articulation. So um, I've not heard any in that specific feedback. If you want to send me an email with this specific example, and I'm happy to like loop in those people if that's easier, just to make sure that they can provide an answer for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Any other questions for Maggie?
Maggie, I got a quick one that is a little unusual. I had a student who is retaking an E, and right when they immediately went into the new class, their major GPA got impacted, but their overall didn't. So it automatically removed the E, and the major GPA went up, but the overall didn't change. Is that a normal dynamic?
I would have to see
Okay.
all the repeat codes. So if you want to email me, I'd have to look and see. I mean, full transparency, as many of you know, like as this is rolling out, as we've seen these niche cases where something didn't update accurately on the past codes, if you can just send those with the examples or any screenshots, send those directly to me or to Reg Help, and I'll make sure to get that in front of UITS so that we can just, you know, line by line review that record and see if it's pulling into the appropriate places.
Sounds good. I'll email it to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I really appreciate all the great questions. Again, I might not have the answer right away, but any questions or cases that seem complex that you're not understanding what you or the student are not understanding kind of what you're seeing on the advisement report or the course history or with the repeat codes, please just keep sending those to us, and we will get to them as quickly as we can and make sure that everything is working as it should. Yeah, and we're your partners in that, and sometimes we don't know that's not working until we have an example. So obviously there's a lot of testing that goes on before anything gets put into production, but there's always these fringe situations that come up that we couldn't have anticipated. But